All right, so today I'm going to attempt to fix the cluster gauge on my 1999 Lincoln Continental. As you can see over here, the text on the message center is garbled, and also the gauges are also flashing. Since the whole thing is flashing, I almost think that it's a power issue or maybe a bad solder joint on the board for this. And the way this one works is the image is actually generated up on top here, and then it is reflected onto the plastic. So we got to get to this, and I'm not sure exactly how to get to it, but we're going to find out. There's a couple of screws up here that we got to pull out. I think that's a good start. So the first step of pulling out the cluster on this car is actually pulling out the lower portion of the trim pieces, which I guess would make up part of the kick panel. This is all one piece. There are several metal push pins. I started pulling at this to get them loose, but I felt like these were gonna break from the plastic. So I took a pick and stuck it in there and tried to add some support. As I pulled it out, I tried to wedge these out too, just so that they wouldn't break from the plastic. And then you have to pull out the weather stripping a little bit as it sits behind it. And then this piece should come loose. It should be loose enough to where you don't really have to pull the whole thing off. We just need to be able to get to the screws. And you can see right here, I've pulled it loose. This is all part of the bottom trim piece. The next thing is there's a trim piece right here that connects to the radio bezel, and there is a bolt, which I believe is a 6mm. I used a 9/32 socket to get to that because I couldn't locate anything that small in my tools. So we're going to use it on this, and there's already 2 screws that I've loosened up here as well. There's one right here that also came loose with a 9/32 socket, and then there's one right here. And then, after we remove this bolt, we're going to pull this away. All right, after removing the bolt that holds on the radio bezel, you should be able to then pull it away gently using a pick to try and pick these out, because if you try to just yank it out, they may break off from the bezel. There's also a connector here and I'm not sure exactly what this is. It looks like some sort of air sensor. There's 2 latches on either side, and you just depress those and pull it out from here. And now this is loose. Now we can get to the bolt on the bottom side of the cluster trim, and then there's another one on the other side as well, on the other side of the steering wheel. And then once we get those 2 out, we should be able to pull this trim. Short note on this cluster trim, there is actually a 3rd bolt that screws in right here, same size as the others, 9/32, and then it should come out. All right, when pulling out the cluster, there's actually a couple of metal trim pins. You may want to use like a pick or something to try and aid in pulling those out. There's one on the side here, and then over on the other side there's one right here. And then after that, there are some connectors that go to your buttons, and those need pulled out as well. Okay, just a spoiler alert here, but I did go ahead and go through this to figure out what all I need to do to get the cluster out, and we will have to do something with the steering column. So we're going to have to remove that trim piece and remove the combination switch out of the way, and then there's also a metal tab that we need to shave off with a Dremel tool. So I'll show you how to get to that. On the bottom section of the trim for the steering column, there are 3 holes with Phillips screws in them, right here, right here, and right here. This hole is so that you can reach there's a ball detent on the bottom of the lock, so you can pull it out with the key in. And I find that it's kind of hard to do with this panel on. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to pull this. Once you get the 3 Phillips head screws, you can start to separate the bottom half. It'll come loose. So after you get the bottom panel loose, we want to remove the top trim piece that goes over the steering column. And if you notice, it doesn't come in half around the lock cylinder, so we're actually going to have to pull this out. If you're at a junkyard or something and you don't have the key, you'll probably have to just take a Dremel tool and cut that trim piece so you can pull it up out of there. But I'm going to try and do this the correct way. So to do that, first we're going to put the key in and make sure that your car is disconnected from the battery first. And we're going to turn it to the run, which is the last position before you try to start it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to take a pick and we're going to reach up here where this ball detent is. What this is for is it helps retain the lock cylinder in place. And I'm going to push this up as far as I can get it. Okay, so I got it up there as far as I can get it. And now I'm going to try and pull out that lock cylinder. Okay, so it is out now, and now we can pull the top panel off of it. All right, so to get this gauge cluster out of here, it's not going to be as easy as just pulling the panels off. I'm able to get it out as far as this tab on the steering column, but I can't get it out any further. I tried loosening the Torx bolts on either side of the steering column to see if it would drop down low enough without completely taking it out, and it still didn't give me enough clearance. This tab, though, at least on this car, does not serve any purpose at all. Maybe on the column shift there's something that goes there, but you know, mine is a floor shift, and it certainly, you know, there's nothing that connects here. The back of it isn't even used to stop the steering wheel from going back too far whenever you tilt it. So I know, you know, this doesn't even come in contact with this. I don't believe the plastic trim that goes over the steering column rests on this either. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a Dremel tool and cut these off, and then, you know, hopefully I'll be able to slide this out of here after that. All right, so after you get the top panel or the top trim piece removed from the steering column, and after you've taken a Dremel tool and cut off these 2 tabs, this will allow the bottom of this cluster to clear that, but the combination switch connectors are still in the way. So what you need to do there is we're going to remove the bottom trim piece. Now that we've got the top trim piece removed, it should come out a little easier. And you'll just pull it away over the tilt lever. And then on this, you can see I've already loosened it up, but there is a bolt here, and then there is a bolt on the bottom side right here that need to come out. And those are 7mm, or you can use a 32nd socket to get those out. And then once that's out, we can simply tilt this out of the way. And there's also a little cover here. I don't know what this is for, but you can just pull up on this and pull it out. And now we're about ready to pull this thing out. All right, to loosen up the gauge cluster, we have 4 7mm bolts around it. There is, you can see I've already pulled one of them out. There's one right there, one on the other side of the steering wheel, one on the right side of the cluster, and one on the left side of the cluster. And I just used a T-handle with a 9/32 bit on it to pull that out. And now it's going to come loose. When mentioning the screw holes for the cluster, I actually forgot a couple. I said that there were 4. There's actually 2 more on the top. I couldn't find them earlier, but here they are. There's one on that side, and then there's one on this side as well. First step to getting it loose and where you need to get it is to make sure that the top clears the top of the dashboard, the mounts where the screws went to hold in the trim piece. After that, it should come fairly loose, and the idea here is to take the right side of it and pull it through this way towards the camera, just so you can see the angle of how I'm pulling this out. You can see it's pulling out this way, and before you can pull it out much further in this, you got to kind of reach behind back here, and there are 2 connectors. Just push your fingers down on them and they will come out. Got one out, and there's 2. And you can see, you just push down on it, and then it'll pull out. And now we're going to pull it out the rest of the way. Okay, so now that I've got this thing out, there are some T15 screws all around the back side of this thing. I noticed that whenever I smack the left-hand side of my dashboard over in this area, sometimes the problem would clear up. And this is the side that the connectors are on. Plus, the whole thing was flickering, not just the top display, but also the LCD display on this side was flickering too. So I think we have a power issue of some sort. So I'm going to focus my attention in this area and see if there's anything that we can see. But first we got to get these T15. There's 3 on top, and there's some all around. Took one out there, here. Anything that's on the green board, I'm going to leave alone for right now. I just need to get the black cover off first. And then on the sides, there are some T15 Torx on those too, so those will all have to come out as well. Before working on this, there is a high voltage sticker on this. Just something to note, there must be some sort of high voltage transformer in here somewhere, so just be careful. Because of high voltage capacitors, there could actually still be some electricity stored in this thing, so be careful when opening. Now that we have the back cover off, I'm going to flip this board over and look at the connections, make sure we don't have any bad solder joints. It looks like there's 1, 2, 3 Torx screws. Oh, there's a 4th one right here. And we'll have to pull this one this connector. If you can get these connectors undone, feel free to, but they seem like they're going to be a little bit tough. All right, so just flipping up the main logic board, I believe we found our issue. I don't know how well I can zoom in on this, but on these ribbon cables, we have plenty of bad solder joints all along here. These are all bad, and they're all going to have to be touched up. You can see where there are several of them that are broken, and we may go ahead and do the connectors as well. We'll just do up all the connections on here, just redo all of them, and that should actually fix our issue on this one. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm just taking some solder wick here, and I'm going to clean up all the old solder. I've cleaned up a good bit of it on this side already, and just go on down the line and clean up all of it, and then I'm going to resolder all of these pins. Okay, so here is what the board looks like after we've soldered a couple of the connectors. We put new solder on them. Now I'm going to do the other connectors. Now that we got the connectors resoldered, I'm just going to take this board and we're going to start putting it back together. So I'm going to flip it back over, put the 4 T15 hex or Torx bits back in, and then we're going to plug this cable back up afterwards. This is the cable that goes to your shift indicator. Okay, now we're going to put the back cover back on. Be sure to take this connector and plug it back in after you've done that. And then begin putting the T15 Torx all around the way that it was. Remember to actually attach the display first. Okay, and then once you get it on, remember to plug this connection back up, and then we're just going to go around it and put the T15 screws back in it. Here's what it should look like after all the T15 Torx screws are back in it. You've got about 4 of them on the top, a couple of them on the bottom, and then on the front there's 2 over here and 1 here. Now it's ready to go back into the car. All right, I've got the cluster back in the car, and you can see it looks like it is fixed. Okay, so on this cluster, I did wait a couple of days, and I have not had any flickering. We've had some pretty hot days, and that seems to be when it's doing it the worst. So I'm gonna go ahead and start putting this back together now. You can see I've already got the covers for the steering column put back on. It's goes on the same way it came off. If you've got your lock cylinder in place, you'll have to take that back out in order to get this top piece back on. I would put on the bottom piece first and then the top piece, and then the post for the screw that's on this side. You may have to take, whenever you put this on, you may have to take a pick and line it up with, there's a metal like a metal hole that this lines up with, so you can fit the screw through it, and then it just attaches it to the steering column. I had a little bit of trouble with that, so make sure that's lined up with this before you put your lock cylinder back on. So after you get that on, the next step would be to put the bezel on for your cluster gauge, and second step would be to put your radio bezel back on, and then the last step would be to put the knee bolster back the way it was. And all those bolts are 9 1/32 or 7mm sockets. When putting the bezel back on for the cluster, It takes a little bit of work, but you can finagle it over top of the steering wheel. You may have to turn the steering wheel around a little bit to get these tabs over it, but it should come over it with not too much difficulty. Don't forget to plug in the 2 connectors for your clock and your system buttons. When putting this back together for the knee bolster, there is a retaining clip about right here that I found to be pretty difficult to put back on, just because of the whole angle of it. So what I did was I loosened the 2 Phillips head screws that are right here, and this allowed me to pull the bottom section outward so I could line up that retaining clip with the hole a little bit better. And as you can see, everything is now back together. So hopefully this fix has helped you guys in fixing your Lincoln Continental. Thanks for watching.